Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining in the call. I know we've got a bunch of new people this week, too, so welcome to all of you. We are talking about turning service into sales today as we continue to look for ways to improve year-end production, as we're trying to continue to look on both the life side, the health side, even the bank side to some standpoint. And a lot of the things we often talk about have to do with some of the sales practices that that you're doing when you're in that selling role, whether you're a team member that's tasked with selling, or perhaps I know today, and we typically have on these calls, some service personnel, some service staff as well. And some of the things that we could be doing at that end to make improvements to the process, to kind of add to the sales funnel, some of the things that we can be doing just as a reminder of the different directions that we can take some of our interactions. And a lot of times it just comes down to something as simply as asking. And so we're going to take a look at some different examples. And as a reminder, we are continuing to focus in on the core four breakdown. This is the 36 app goal count that we have. Now, again, some of you are in different spots as far as this goes. You may have um, a different goal, a higher goal, a lower goal. But as just as a reminder, as we kind of look to break this goal down, we're looking at opportunities for family plans, for final expense policies, for return to premium, which is primarily for the millennial type, a policy they can grow into, or probably more commonly used as a way to protect a mortgage. And then, of course, our child policies, which can come as offshoots of the family plan, where the separate policy is established for the child as opposed to just a rider, or as a gift from a grandparent or an aunt and uncle or something like that. So lots of good opportunities. This continues to be the core four. And as we've talked about in past weeks, we always look at the sales funnel. This is the process essentially that you're prospecting, your lead generation, your setting of appointments, different things like that, all kind of go into the sales funnel. And ultimately, we want to get this issued app at the bottom. And there's a lot of different work that goes into putting prospects, customers, leads, that type of thing into the top of this funnel. They don't all trickle out to the bottom to be sales. That's fine. As you can see from this example, we might make a bunch of calls. Only some of those would be considered to be good calls. Get appointments set out of some of those, so on and so forth, down till we get a sale, we get an issued app out the bottom. But one of the things that we always have to keep an eye out for are the other ways of adding to the sales funnel. And that's where turning service into sales can come into play. And we've got a lot of new announcements coming out now of some additional enhancements to product, some things on the bank side. These are all another example of good ways to just sort of mention these things to your regular customers through your normal everyday service interactions. It may be that you don't have anything to do on the sales side, you're strictly service. There's still an opportunity to pivot to another team member, to pivot to the agent, to offer or mention an additional service. I mean, I always use the example here of some of the ways we see this happen in our everyday lives as consumers and so forth. I went down to the gas station the other day and it was pouring rain. It was miserable out. And sure enough, the cashier, after I paid for the gas, said, "You want a car wash?" And I was like, no, thank you. I'm not sure who's getting a car wash that day, but they asked, right? And maybe they were just on autopilot. That may be true, but I think it goes to show that you just never know, and we don't want to pick and choose our opportunities to engage a little bit further with our customers. We want to do it kind of every time, so that we can enlighten them about some of the other different ways we may be able to help them. And that's why I don't look at us turning service into sales from this standpoint as just offering a car wash, for example. But I think the idea is still the same, which is let's just make sure we do it every time. We don't need to pick and choose. And so one of the things we like to do is look at the definition of what service is. And I know, depending on what roles you're doing, beginning a day and some of the other tasks and servicing and certain times of the year and certain times of the day or week, the service can really kind of seem to overwhelm. But let's take a look and see what it really is. It's the action of helping or doing work for someone. I think that's probably what we would normally consider to be part of our servicing role. But this is the part of the definition that I want to focus on a little bit more. Assistance or advice that's given to customers during and after the sale of goods. And this is the part of the service definition that I think you want to ask yourself, am I doing this? I think almost all of you are probably helping and doing work for someone as far as the servicing part goes. But are we providing that assistance and advice after the sale of goods? Are we going an extra step and doing this part of what the definition of service is? And this is, I think, where we can oftentimes do a little bit better. And it really just comes down to the difference between hearing and listening. I think we look at hearing as just more of a passive type of thing. Somebody, as mentions they need to change your address, no problem. You turn around, you start to take care of it, and so forth. You heard what they said, and you're going to help and do that work for that someone. But when we listen and we're hearing that there's an address change, what does that mean? Well, there was a move probably. What prompted the move? Are they going to a house? Are they moving back to an apartment? What exactly is going on there? And that's where we can actively listen and ask a follow-up to a question or two, because the idea here is that we're not trying to be nosy and find out exactly what's going on, but there may be something going on in their lives that you're going to be able to help with. And if you don't do it specifically yourself, then maybe another fellow team member or the agent could help. So we'd like to look at some of these things as they ultimately can wind up being sales opportunity. They start off as service requests, simple administrative changes. Maybe it's just a question about a policy, any additions that they need to make, and so forth. And so there's oftentimes a life, health, bank, or some kind of opportunity in there. And this is why we want to take a look at these situations, because of how often they occur. And if we got into a regular practice of just asking a little bit more about some of these life events that created the service need, is there a potential need where we can help them with some other things? People don't mind talking off like that. We don't want to push people into it. If they don't want to talk anything more about what they just mentioned, if they sort of clam up, that's fine. We're not trying to force people to talk or give information away that they're not comfortable doing. But what we want to do is engage with people a little bit about what's going on, why the change in car. Oh, that's nice. Just very friendly conversation in around some of these service issues provides some tremendous opportunity. And just as simple as asking a couple of follow-up questions. And you say, well, why do we have to go through all this process? And I'm sure you've seen, if you've gone around just about anywhere, that people who are at those front lines, like many of you are, where you're dealing with customers face to face many times a day. That's where you see it happen in our society as consumers, where maybe it's an add-on thing. It might be a membership card or to make a donation, or did you know, if you're at the bank, do you understand? The thing they used to do pretty regularly there was offer annuities or CDs and things like that. It's the same kind of thing. And the reason why it works is that these are people who have perhaps a need to know. They might want some more information, and that's kind of the way we have to look at it. When we look at that sales funnel, we're trying to set appointments, we're trying to get people to come in, we're trying to sit down with people and have conversations. It's not always the easiest thing in the world to do. And we're trying to stretch and look for people, maybe, buy leads and go to this extent. But a lot of the people that have things that we can help them with, even from a sales side, are coming in, walking in, calling in every day. Every time the phone rings, there's potentially an opportunity there. And yes, we want to make sure that we're taking care of that service request, but is there anything else we can be doing to help them? What changes are going on in their lives? This is an important part of it, right? Knowing, especially in this business, where we're talking about policies that protect people from a variety of different things, we need to know what's going on with that property, be it a house, an apartment, a car, your life insurance, your hospital income. These kinds of things are all important. And a lot of people may not be aware that those kinds of things are even available to them. You do have to kind of remember that the P&C side is the mothership. That is kind of what everybody thinks about. So the idea that you might be able to help a family with hospital income policies for their kids who are always winding up getting hurt somewhere during sports, or to provide that additional life insurance to supplement what might already be in place at work, they may not know that you can help them with that. From our standpoint, it's easy to be like, well, of course they do, right? We've talked to everybody about this stuff, but their lives change and their situations change. And a lot of that, again, the point being, comes from the servicing. 2/3 of your customers do not know that life insurance is an option. And so we talk and look at some of these enhancements as an opportunity too. Some of the changes that are coming up could be good conversational starters, really good, oh, by the way, kind of things. Did you know we're the #1 life insurer in America? Just something as simple as that could be that one additional thing that you do as it relates to the service. Things like bank and mortgages, the new money market rate specials with checking and checking accounts. This is something maybe people are not aware of. I mean, the bank is probably further down from even the life insurance side in terms of awareness. And so when we're using service as an opportunity to, again, the title of this talk today, turning service into sales, is just simply mentioning some of the other ways we may be able to help these customers. So they've got the car with you. Maybe you may not have financing through bank, but in either case, most likely have some type of payment. But is that person who's maybe calling in to add that car or make a change to that car or an update aware that disability insurance that could help them pay for their car if they're not able to work due to an injury or illness? Is it possible that they don't know that that product and that conversation is something that they can have right there in your office? And again, maybe not with you, but it should be offered, right? It could be offered as something that they can take a look at. Multi-line discounts would fall on that list. Certainly, the ability to review their recovery insurance is a really good pivot. Has anybody ever sat down with you and your family, Mrs. Johnson, and kind of given you what your recovery insurance picture looks like? That's something that we can help set up and pivot to, again, to either a team member or to an agent. One of the ways we typically look at this, and I've kind of already touched on it a little bit, is the idea of take care plus one. And this has been around for a while and it works. And so most of these ideas that have been around for a long time have produced results. The key to take care plus one is consistency. It's essentially the process of providing that service that they need and require to address their request, but it's followed by an intentional effort to position another opportunity for help or assistance, which may or may not be related to the original request. Maybe it was something, a very simple change they needed to make on their auto policy and say, where you can just, you know, one more additional opportunity or service that can be mentioned, sort of as an out you go on your way out the door type thing. Because we just never know. It may not be the time right then and there. Like my example, it wasn't my time for a car wash that day, but they still asked. And maybe I think about that next time I go in. Maybe I forgot there was a car wash there. Maybe it was on the other side of the building. I never knew they had one. Right? So you just never know how these things work out. We want to make sure that we ask a little bit about what that initial need is so we can see if there's maybe something else we can help them with. Right? One of the things now, like with the expanded exam waiver qualifications, used to be up to 250,000, up to age 35, much higher age and face amount possibilities now on the exam waiver side. That's something that could be mentioned to almost anybody that comes in today. Right? Were you aware that we can now help many families establish life insurance without the need for medical exams? It may not be everybody, but I want them to know that not only are we in the business, but we can now help families, which, I mean, we did have the exam waiver before. Now it's, going to be expanded. But again, that's a quick mention that you could do from a service standpoint that eventually will turn into a sale if we do it on a regular, consistent basis. This is informational. We want to let you know we can do this now. Maybe they've thought about it. The medical exams just scared them to death. Did you now know we can help a lot of families get the additional life insurance they need without a medical exam? Would you like to learn more about that? Right? And that could be really almost after any service request. Some rules as far as this goes, though, is we obviously always want to make sure we're processing the service request accurately and we're doing it carefully and taking care of it. It's called take care plus one. We always want to take care of the servicing request. We don't want to put one in front of the other. The point of this is we're just making sure that we maybe ask a couple of follow-up questions, maybe mention a new enhancement, mention a special, something going on with bank, some other additional thing that we can do every time. The goal, again, as I said earlier, is not to be nosy and intrusive. It's to be friendly and interested. People like to talk to them about themselves. Asking a couple of follow-up questions can be a good way of finding out what's going on in their situation. See if maybe there's another way that either you or a team member or an agent can help that customer with something else that's going on in their lives. So there's products that are out there that people see and hear about. I'll just give another example, the Aflac that people see about. They think, all right, well, I like this idea of getting paid if I can't go to work and stuff. I don't understand where to go here. They're already a customer of yours. So when we mention things like short-term disability insurance, which is what that is, or hospital income, we're actually doing them a favor by saying, if it ever comes to the point where you would want to do something like that, we can help you. And we want to do that regularly through active listening and finding out what prompted that service request. And there's a number of different examples where we see this happen, like just something as simple as changing an address, for example. No problem, we can get that address changed for you. That must be exciting. What prompted the move, right? So just right off the bat, instead of just kind of turning to the computer and making the change, and I know everybody on this call is going to be friendly with customers. I'm not saying that, we're treating them in a cold manner normally or anything, but just that extra follow-up, sort of an open-ended question. Oh, what prompted the move? Because sometimes these things could be for really good reasons. They could be for bad reasons. They could be temporary. There's a lot of different directions you can go. Let's just kind of look at this exchange here. Well, we needed to be located more north of the city. Oh, I see. Was that to be closer to a job or family? No, we just needed a bigger house and some better schools. Oh, well, those are certainly good reasons to make a change. Yeah, and our kids are getting a little bit older, and we've got a third one on the way now. And so we're just kind of looking at this brief exchange where the service staff team member just started having a conversation with them about that address change. And to look at this and say, how many different opportunities presented themselves here? It could be a mortgage opportunity, return a premium to cover that new house they just bought. They've got kids, they've got one on the way, child policies, hospital income, probably some bank issues too that can be helped with, some refinancing. So just a variety of different things that came out, not just from just making the address change itself, but I know they've moved, that they have got a bigger house, they've got a couple of kids and one on the way. So a lot of information was gleaned just from this very quick exchange. And it really doesn't need to be much more than this. We looked at this situation with and again, all the different products that have come up as far as the baby on the way, moving closer to that job. People could be moving to be closer to a job, which would prompt a discussion. Well, once you get settled and you find out what your benefits look like at work, why don't we set up a time for you to come in and review what your recovery insurance looks like, and we can take a look at the benefits you're already getting from that new job, just see if there's any gaps there. It can be moving to a bigger place. For what reason? In this case, it was the expansion of the family, trying to get better to schools. Sometimes people move because they've gotten married. Sometimes it's the opposite direction, separation or a divorce, right? My neighbors went from, the house and certain insurance needs. If he went to, and they're separated, so now there's two renters policies, right? That I'm not even so sure that was brought up or thought through that process. And, again, maybe it's a temporary situation, but if he went in to change his address, there should be questions that follow up so that we say, here's other things that you might not be thinking of that we also need to take care of. We've got your address changed on your auto policy, but have you thought about renters insurance and some other things that we can help you with during this sort of temporary situation, if you will? So I think there's a lot of different things that can come just from that type of situation. Customer calls in to make an auto change. Changing cars is exciting, right? What prompted the change? Is it a bigger car? Is it a smaller car? Did they go from a car to a truck, which could indicate maybe they're starting, a business or something? I mean, again, everywhere you look in your own lives, you see examples of this working. Another neighbor of mine went, he had this tiny little car, I forget what it was, and now he has this huge Dodge Ram pickup truck. So if you see that, you should be like, what? That's wow, that's a big change in cars there. He had started a business that involves him having to carry around equipment. He needed the truck. If he went into his insurance agency and went from a small two door car to a big pickup truck, I would, there's got to be some additional opportunity there for a variety of different insurance needs and just to be conversational and informative for the customer. Remember, advice and assistance that's given after the sale. Some people come into money or get promoted or the opposite direction. One of the things that we look for on the auto change is any significant upgrade or downgrade that could maybe prompt an additional discussion. Of course, there's the bank loans, the bank products, and different things that can help on the auto side as well, or short-term DI to cover a payment. Now, these things don't all have to come out at the same time. But the point being that if we talk and have a conversation about the change in cars and, again, especially those significant changes in the vehicle, just kind of talking about the person who goes from a little two-door sports car to a pickup truck is probably going to be willing to talk to you about why they made that change. And maybe there's an opportunity, maybe there isn't. But they're going to leave feeling, if nothing else, that you didn't just take care of that change, but you had a conversation with them. Customer calls in to add a driver. This can go a bunch of different directions. So we've seen this happen on a couple different occasions. Sometimes it's just that new driver, but we've seen occasions where it's an older family member moving back in, sort of that boomerang effect. So the mother-in-law moved back into the house, became a new driver in the house, and that actually resulted in a UL sale with a flexible care benefit rider. So you just never know when you start to ask a little bit about the situation, who's moved in and what the situation is. You can usually tell based off of age. Here's another example of some of the enhancements with the lower term age coming out. Then it might be a youthful driver that's being added in. Well, here's another opportunity to say, hey, did you know we have new lower term amount? We have lowered our minimum age, which makes it great for a youthful driver to get established on a life policy and lock in a very low rate that will be locked in for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And using, again, sort of the new changes and new enhancements as a way to sort of work them into the service conversation. And in this case, being done almost more like an advertisement than anything else. Again, from the life side, financing side, hospital income, disability, all offer opportunities to mention some of these things when these service issues arise. Customer calls in to file a claim. This is a little tricky because we do obviously want to make sure that we're taking care of this claim first. So this one's a little bit different, but can be very effective. We want to take care of the claim, obviously make sure that's processed. That's why they pay the insurance premiums, is to get these things fixed. But once the dust is settled, once everything's back on the road, people aren't hurt or injured and things of that nature. After the claim has been settled, we have an opportunity to sit down and readdress that. Once we complete this claim process, perhaps it would be wise for us to sit down together to review the recovery coverages that you have in place. These people have gone through an incident, and it might just be a fender bender, where some damage occurred. They probably scared them. And we've got it fixed. The car is fixed. The stuff is fixed. Whatever it happens to be on the P&C side. But this was a scary situation. And once it's all settled and once you're back, on your feet, let's have a conversation so that we can make sure that all our ducks are in a row. And just use it as an opportunity to offer some additional review of coverage that they have perhaps with their life insurance or recovery plan looks like. Maybe run a quick, IFR and talk about disability insurance. Hopefully that accident, that claim didn't result in anything serious, but it certainly could have. And so now it's a reminder that there's other ways we may be able to help you in instances like this. I'm glad your stuff was protected, if you will. But let's have a conversation about some other things so that we can make sure that if something like this ever happened again, that you're in a better spot. And again, that could be something you set up for yourself, another team member, perhaps the agent, depending on what the situation is. Certainly a hospital income policy could come into play too, especially when we're talking about things like an auto accident. Now, we're not trying to play off the claim here, so don't get me wrong. We're not ambulance chasing here or anything like that. It's just the first and foremost thing that needs to get done here is that this claim gets taken care of and that they're okay. So we express that empathy and that concern like you would normally do. But it just gives another opportunity once things have been settled to kind of maybe sit down and review that. And this works out well. People really appreciate when you do it this way, especially if their claim worked out smoothly. And a lot of them do. I know they don't all work out, but this again is just another opportunity. And again, verifying, updating any of these things. Thanks for noticing of that. Thank you for notifying us of that change. Keeping this information updated is very important. It can be vital when helping you recover from the unexpected. As I make these changes, let me ask you about some of the other recovery insurance that you already have in place. Can you tell me about any life insurance you own outside of work? So this is just a nice way of saying, sort of, if you will, pivoting from the service request to another product simply by saying, first of all, thanks for letting us know. Thanks for letting us know you've added a driver. Thanks for letting us know your address changed. Even if they are required to do all of these things like an added car, hey, thanks for letting us know about that. And that it's important that we're up to date on things like your addresses and your work numbers and things so that we're able to help you bounce back and recover from the unexpected, which is why you have insurance with us, right? So I'm going to make these changes. Tell me about the other recovery insurance you have in place. For example, anything maybe that you have through work. But it's just a good opportunity to kind of expand upon the service request. Verifying phone numbers and addresses always, right? While processing payment, ask about any important changes that should be noted on the account. What would a new work number indicate? A new job, maybe a promotion inside the same company? We can, again, use that opening phrase. Just tell me about the insurance you own outside of work. Are you currently working full time? That's just a very casual conversational customer question to ask when they're, updating, for example, a new work number. That could lead to step one of getting short-term disability insurance, which is working full time. So some of the most successful team members and agencies that I know that do short-term disability talk about work to get to the disability piece. So asking about working full time off of a new work number is a really smooth way of kind of entering in that conversation. Changes may also be due to other life events mentioned, like divorce, separation, baby, marriage. A variety of different things could change even the most basic service information. And these life events can happen pretty fast, especially, I've talked to a lot of offices these days that are busy, which is good. And so these things can come at you kind of hard and fast, and you do want to keep track of them. This is the life events grid, which a lot of you have used with some great success, and this is available as a handout on the sidebar on the right-hand side under handouts. You can just print off this PDF. Basically, these are some major life events. This is not all of them. Baby, death, divorce, job change, marriage, new car, new home. The idea of this chart is if you're in the service role or if you're handling a lot of service issues and you've decided, you know what, I'm going to do this take care plus one. Every time I do a service issue, I'm going to find one additional product, service, or something else that I can mention and bring up. I'm going to be keeping my eyes and ears open for life events that would perhaps present additional ways for us to help them. And what this chart does is allows you to write down their name, policy number, phone number, whatever the case might be, in the box. You talk to somebody who's going through a job change. They change their work number, they change their work address. They sound super excited about the new job. It's closer to their home. This all happened from the service interaction because of the active listening that was taking place. That person's name and information can be put in the box under job change. And again, keeping that as your own way of filling that sales funnel if you're in that position, or giving it to somebody else in the office and saying, hey, I just ran into this guy, change his address, his work address, new promotion, new company, just want to let you know. And that's a great call to make. right? That's a great appointment setting call. It's not a list necessarily. You have some narrative around why you should meet. Once you get your benefits in place, glad to hear that. That's awesome. We've got all that change noted on your account. When you get settled, you get your stuff through human resources. Let's take a look at what that recovery picture looks like for you. We'll use the benefits at your new job to kind of fill in any of those gaps. But this can be done again for baby, death, divorce, any kind of key life event. This is a good way to keep track of what those things look like. Again, doing so with the idea of helping the customer. We can pivot specifically for certain types of policies that come up as well. When we're doing things like asking about the kids through a service interaction, just conversational. I know a lot of you that sit at the front lines, you see a lot of the same people over the course of the month or once a month, whatever it happens to be, right? And some of them it's weekly or daily. But the idea being we have conversation with these folks anyway. So let's see where there's opportunity perhaps. Asking about kids, how's the school year gone so far? Are they playing sports? This could lead directly to things like child policies, guaranteeing their future insurability, hospital income policy to help them out while they're playing those sports in case there's an injury or something that takes place. I don't know how many of you have kids that maybe play soccer and stuff, but every Saturday, some kids getting hurt. I mean, thankfully not majorly hurt, but it happens almost every weekend somewhere on one of the fields. And so, we're just saying there's other things we can do to help you supplement. A lot of these folks are on very high deductible insurance plans, and a hospital income policy can be really handy when they're playing sports. Just having a conversation with people about their kids and what they're doing can lead to stuff like that. And it doesn't have to be during an IFR or a life appointment. It can be done during a service interaction. We've had final expense policies sold just processing state-to-state transfers from a service standpoint, and did so maybe to affect a multi-line discount. We look for those key changes in their lives for things like family plans, which is a big part, as I mentioned in the very beginning, a big part of app production comes from those family plans, and we look for those key life events, death, divorce, marriage, baby, different things, moving. These are all things that can happen, all present opportunities to ask about things like life insurance, what might already be in place, what other things can we do to best help them. Some of the next things that we could be doing here as we go through, because this is something that you have to, I mean, we could have done one slide on this essentially. You're not supposed to agree with that, by the way. But we could have done one slide that just says, take care +1. That's the main gist of today, is pay attention to the service issue at hand and ask an additional follow-up question. What prompted you to move? Was it time for a new car? How exciting. That must be a new opportunity for you. These are just very conversational ways that we can turn a service interaction into a friendlier engagement, and we can do so where we ultimately might be able to help them. If there's not a product or something that jumps out and you're in a position to shift that to either yourself for an appointment or to somebody else who handles appointments, then that sometimes is better. So it allows you better time to prepare and make sure that that service request maintains that service feel, so they don't feel like we're just kind of piling on, right? We don't really want to do that. I'm glad we're able to resolve this here for you today. And let's set an appointment for next Thursday to review that family recovery plan we talked about, right? So maybe today's not the day, but I'm going to reemphasize. Again, thanks for coming in. I'm glad we were able to take care of that service issue for you. But we've talked about a couple other things. Why don't we meet next week and we can take a deeper look into some of those things, right? So gives you an opportunity to circle back to the appointment. Let's schedule 30 minutes to make sure all your recovery needs have been met. How about the same time? How about the same day and time next week? We talk about that pretty regularly with setting appointments. If somebody comes in Tuesday afternoon at 2, there's a pretty good chance that next Tuesday at 2 would also be a good time. It just happens to be when they run their errands or it's their day off work, whatever it happens to be. So that kind of, how about you come back the same time next week and we can spend a half an hour and sort of go over that. So we have an opportunity to do that as well. Perhaps you are somebody who doesn't handle appointments. You want to send that to somebody else. Donna's available right now if you'd like to review that recovery insurance that you have in place, right? If you want to talk about that a little bit further, I can get you in front of Donna right now. So there's that opportunity to perhaps pivot to an appointment right then and there if the customer has time. But I think you could see here that the service issues that come up and the interactions that we have with our customers could go a variety of different directions, but they all ultimately should maintain that service feel, but give the customers some additional information. It may not be they have time to sit down that day. That's fine. As long as we had an opportunity to mention additional products and services, additional ways that they can be helped, then you've done your job. So we want to keep it light and conversational, actively listen. It's hard to do this if you're not really listening to the customer, needless to say, right? So if you say, oh, wow, so looks like here you went from the Honda Accord that we had on here to the 2018 F350, right? I'm probably going to, wow, that's a big jump, So, but when they say, well, yeah, I'm actually starting a landscaping company on the side kind of thing, just don't pass right through it and just continue to process requests. Ask, oh wow, landscaping, is that something you used to do before, or are you currently doing that, or are you just kind of jumping into it fresh? Just have a conversation, because maybe there's additional opportunities there, especially on the commercial side, right? Have a pen and paper handy, like the life events grid, so that you can keep track of these life events as they come up. In that last example I just gave you, maybe you can make note. Here's somebody who went from just a regular 4-door sedan to a truck, starting a landscaping business. What opportunities can I have to talk to them about? I can call them back in a few days and be like, I know you were in here the other day. We got that change processed with the new truck you got. I understand you're getting into landscaping. I just want to make sure that you knew there's perhaps some other ways we might be able to help you with that business, some things on the commercial side, and so forth, right? So we have an opportunity to work any of these types of situations. If you don't handle appointments yourself, make sure you position the other team member or the agent as an expert in that area. Ron is an expert with helping people that are going through job changes. Bob's great with relocation, state-to-state transfers. He's got some good tips and advice on how to handle that. Let me see if Amber's available now to help you. So you can kind of take that point guard role and maybe perhaps put them in touch with somebody that can better help them. We want to make sure we make it a goal with every service interaction. I think my car wash in the rain is a perfect example. Somebody who's saying, this is something I need to be doing. This is something that helps the business where I'm working. It's part of my job. And I don't care if it's raining. I'm going to ask anyway, right? And you just never know. So that's a big part of this, though, is trying to do it on a regular basis to try and create those opportunities, try and fill that grid up by identifying all those different life events that could come up. So there's a lot of different opportunities to set appointments, mention a different product. I think we've got another opportunity now with some enhancements to the exam waiver, the lowering the term ages, specials on money market and checking account on the bank side. These things can all be mentioned with service to say, hey, did you know we do this now? Right? And you can change it. Maybe for this week, all I'm going to be talking about is 2% of money market. All this week, all I'm mentioning is the fact that our exam waiver opportunities have increased, and that maybe this is a great time for you to take a look at that. And I'm going to do that every single person all this week. And next week, you can talk about something different. What we're trying to do is expand what our customers know, what your customers know about you and what services you can offer. I mentioned the bank specials. People are usually open to what's going on in their lives. We're not going to get nosy about it, but when we ask additional questions about what their need for service is, where it comes from, it's not an annoyance. It's a major part of what the overall customer experience looks like. It's necessary, and it's an important step in making sure that we're helping them in any way we can. People have disability, life insurance, hospital income, bank needs, auto needs. that go beyond the scope of the normal service interaction. But when we can have conversations with people about what's going on in their lives and maybe what prompted the service request in the first place, we might be able to uncover and introduce them to those additional ways of helping. And that is a great way to continue to add to that sales funnel for the agency, on top of all the other different things that we do in terms of running lists and so forth, is to find these people, these everyday customers who already appreciate what you do and who are calling in and walking in on a daily basis, many of whom have those additional needs. I would be happy to go back and look at a slide if anybody wants to. Type in your questions on the sidebar if you have any. And just keep an eye out for the newsletter as well, which will kind of go over this information again, provide the life events grid to you. But make it a point to turn your service into sales whenever you can. Keeping in mind the service is the first and most important thing, but be aware of those other opportunities that exist, and you see a big difference in how we're able to help our customers and ultimately help the agency as well. So with that, I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, great rest of the week. And if you ever need anything, you have a question, feel free to contact me at the information on the screen. Have a great day and thanks for joining.